My name is Clifford M. Black, born in St. John, New Brunswick, January the 28th, 1917, and joined the Air Force in June of 1940 from Baie-Comeau, Quebec, where I was working.
And so how old would you have been about then, Cliff?
I think I was 23.
About 23? Any motivations to go join the Air Force?
Oh yeah, the minute the war started, I was working for the Quebec North Shore Paper Company at that time. The minute it started, I wanted to get in, but being up there, I had to write out, everything had to be written out and sent, and it took me about 6 months nearly to get finally accepted. And because things were so busy at that time that they didn't answer your stuff till they needed to. They needed people at the time.
Can you tell a little bit about the training, about your training, and like where you went for training, the type of training? Well,
I joined in Toronto. Montreal, and went from there to Toronto. After I was signed up, went to the what they called the Hunt Club, and you took about 1 month for them to decide whether you're going to be a pilot, a navigator, or whatever. And I'd been tipped off about this, and when this fellow that likely had never been in an aircraft said, "Now, what do you want to be?" And I said, "I want to be a pilot." I joined the Air Force to be a pilot. If I'm not a pilot, and this is what I was told to say, I'll join the Navy. So there was a dead silence, and a few minutes later he said, "Well, that's all fine, thank you." And I guess he must have put down, he gets in the Air Force, or if he doesn't, we're going to lose him. So that's the way I got in the Air Force. And we took this 1 month training up there. Then I was selected to be a pilot, and we were sent to a little farm field in Windsor Mills, Quebec. And we didn't have any runways or anything, just a grass field and one little hangar. And we were trained on Fleet Finches, a little biplane. And I went solo there, and then that took about from July to about October. And then we were sent to Windsor Mills, Quebec, Kingston, Ontario. And we arrived there in the fall of November, I guess, maybe October. And we didn't have any aircraft there. There wasn't any heat in the brand new quarters that were being built. And it was an RAF station that had come out from Peterborough, England. And they did that when Hitler decided they were going to invade England, and the first thing they were going to have to do is take out all the airports in England. So they started moving them out to Canada, to the British Empire training plant under that. So it was RAF instructors and so on. And we went through the ground school, and when we finished that, about a month or a month and a half, we still didn't have any aircraft, and we took our exams and so on, and after all of the ground school had been gone through a couple of times because we had nothing else to do, we finally got our aircraft and got the flying started, and we finished the flying, and they selected we were 32 in the class, and at the end of the training, they selected 10 to be commissioned, and I was lucky enough to be one of the 10. And they sent the 10 officers to Pat Bay to take a GR course, General Reconnaissance course, and that was mainly to qualify you as a navigator as well as a pilot.
Can I just go back, Cliff? What aircraft were you using did you get your wings on, or what were you?
Harvard.
Harvard, okay.
Harvard, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, a lot of the trouble we had was that these Brits, of course, with their accents, and we didn't have any radios, we hollered through a tube, and you would continually be saying, "Excuse me, sir, what was that again?" And finally, you know, get the remark like, "Canadians don't speak English," we all, after each day, would come back and say, "Boy, we had a tough time today." He had to say 4 times that he wanted me to turn to the right, you know, and climbing turn or something. And so anyway, it all worked out.
Was there much social life for you guys at that time, like when in the training?
No, not. We were, you must remember, see, the airports are generally way out of town, and we didn't have cars. So there wasn't much to do. You get a 48-hour pass about once in the whole time, and when we were in Windsor Mills, we went to Montreal. It so happened that one of the instructors in Windsor Mills had his own little aircraft, and was the band leader in the best nightclub in Montreal at the time. I can remember, so we had a 48-hour pass, and he set it all up that we could go there, and we wouldn't have to pay the 75 cents a night, what do you call it, to get your table. That was the
cover charge?
Exactly, the cover charge. So we get in for free.
Was he Canadian then, or was he
yes,
British?
He was Canadian.
Okay.
But his aircraft, he couldn't get gasoline for his aircraft or anything in wartime like that. So he went back and went instructing, which he was qualified to do, I guess. And we had all of the flying clubs and so on, and in Canada, most of them became instructors in the Air Force. And I know that my instructor was from Cape Breton, and a fellow named McCrae. And he got me solo. And after that, we were glad to get to an airport that had runways on it. We used to get some high winds in Windsor Mills. I can remember that the chief instructor there, just to show off a little bit, took a Hudson up one, or
a Harvard?
Fleet Finch up, and flew it backwards across the runway, or across the field, I should say. There was about a 70-mile-an-hour wind, and she could fly at about 50. So he went up and flew backwards across the field. We were quite impressed.
So do you know why you were selected, out of 10, why you were selected in the 10? Did you get a feeling for why you would be selected?
When the 10? Commission, you mean?
Yes, when you said you're 10 to go over to Western Command, you were one of the 10?
Oh, yeah, well, all of the officers went to Western Air Command. That's how we got there.
Oh. Okay. And what would have happened with the remainder?
Well, the others were sent off to be trained somewhere else. I mean, some of them might have gone overseas.
Oh, okay.
Once they got their wings. It depended an awful lot at that time of what they needed. For example, there was a shortage of air gunners at one time. A lot of people became air gunners that wanted to be pilots. That sort of thing, or navigators. But everybody was in a hurry and busy.
Okay. So yeah, so you get to Pat Bay.
Yeah.
So what types of activities were you doing there?
Well, we got checked out on Lockheed 10, Lockheed 10As at the time. I think they had belonged to Air Canada, or it wasn't Air Canada then, it was TCA, Trans-Canada Airlines. And I think they had to give up a lot of their aircraft to the Air Force at the time. They needed anything they could get for training.
Would they be twin engine?
Twin engine, yeah. Beechcraft, twin engine. I was checked out by an old bush pilot. And he was flew for Hudson Bay. They had a Beechcraft, I think, on floats. And that was his aircraft when he was with his base. So he was quite a fellow. Harry Winnie was his name. Everybody knew him. He was about 6'4".
So then, when would you have got the Hudsons, or is that you're taking a navigation course then?
Well, we started out. Yeah, we checked out on the Beechcraft, and then when we started operating, we were sent. When we finished the course, we went to 120 Squadron that was on the base, and we were flying Hudsons from there. They were equipped with Hudsons, and we just started doing patrols out to get our we took turns being navigator. We'd make up of teams. My teammate was a fellow by the name of Barney McCaskill from South Carolina. There were about 7,000 Americans came up and joined the Air Force at the beginning of the war.
So Cliff, so how long, so you're, what are those patrols doing when you're going out on the Hudsons? What are you looking for?
Well, we're just practicing, really.
Okay.
Because at that time the Japanese were still in Japan, and they hadn't moved into the Aleutian Islands, and so we were just plotting patrols out and what we would be doing if the Japanese were a threat.
Are you armed? Are the Hudsons armed at all?
No. We had
Machine guns?
Machine guns on a mid-upper turret, that, as I recall. I don't think we had we didn't have a tail turret. We had a mid-upper turret, that's all, with twin 303s.
Okay. And then you said that something about, like, you didn't have enough navigators, so you were switching?
Well, at that time, remember, it's 1940, and we'd only been at it for a few months because they had to collect up aircraft, and they had to get instructors, they had to do all of those things before they could even open up schools. And we were both, the whole 10 of us were qualified as navigators, and as well as pilots. So I would fly today and you navigate. And as I said, we were put in teams kind of, and Barney McCaskill, the American, was my navigator, and I was his navigator when he flew. So,
was that typical in bombing command too, or was this just specific to Western Air Force that you'd switch roles like that?
well, no, that was only in this particular.
Just part of your training?
Just part of your training, yeah. Because there was no threat out there at that time, so you just sort of did what you're going to have to do if the need arises.
So was there a typical training patrol that you would have done, or like were they a length of time? Do you remember? I mean, that's a long time ago, but.
No, we just were given an assignment each day, and away you go. You know.
Were you pretty happy with the Hudson as an aircraft?
Yeah. I wouldn't have liked to have flown it in the war, but as an aircraft that we knew we weren't going to have to fight with. because there was a squadron at the beginning of the war, a bomber squadron, and the first raid they went on, I think there were 25 aircraft and 17 were shot down.
Wow.
That ended the Hudson, I think, on
So Pearl in December 7th comes, happens, and then what changes for you then? Like, do people's attitude change?
Well, what happened was that the first thing they did, they secured the base. Because remember, we got about 25,000 Japanese out on the west coast. So they started rounding up the Japanese adults. And they started doing that just about the time that we were sent up to Coal Harbour. We had a chap on the staff up there that could speak Japanese. His family were missionaries or something, or had gone out. He was born, I think, in China, or in Japan. And so when they started bringing all of the Japanese in the area in to be investigated, they asked them, I saw the directive and the questions that they asked them. And this fellow's name, believe it or not, was Service. And his favorite thing he used to say was, "Are you happy in the service?" So, anyway, he had quite a sense of humor, this guy. But he was doing the questioning. And the first question was, where were you born? And where were your parents born? Are they in Canada or are they in Japan? And when's the last time that you visited your parents in Japan? And questions like that to find out where you think their loyalty would be. And if the Japanese attacked the West Coast, what were these 25,000 Japanese, who most of them were fishermen? And when they collected all their boats up, they found some pretty sophisticated equipment on board, radio, high vested in the business practically of radios and so on, with some of them. And so well, you know what happened, they sent them inland to get them away from the coast.
Did you think that was the right thing to do at the time?
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
If your parents are in Japan, and your brother's there or someone, something like that, and you were lucky enough to get into Canada, you decide you want to come here. Now your country's at war with Canada.
Yeah, bad luck.
Where's your loyalty? Do you want to go back to Japan, or you want to stay there and with the equipment you got on board your boat, you can be a little help to them?
That same, in the United States, it's well documented, there was an anger, like there was Pearl Harbour was felt, a stab in the back, it was anger. Would you say there was that sense of anger or fear, or what sense would you say on the base would you guys have had at that time of Pearl Harbour? Was there an anger against the Japanese?
Oh, yeah. First of all, it was such a surprise, I think, and it was a very effective raid on Pearl Harbour. They took out, I think, 7 battleships. That's the main strength of the fleet. The whole Japanese or American fleet were destroyed.
So now, so soon after that, you transfer to Coal Harbour now?
Coal Harbour, yeah.
Okay, could you describe a bit about what the Coal Harbour, and you changed your aircraft, I think, maybe?
Yes, we did. It was the biggest change you could ever imagine. We were flying Hudsons, which at that time we thought we were sort of the big shots, because it was the biggest aircraft we had, combat aircraft, And all of a sudden, some Stranraer started arriving out at Pat Bay. And a fellow headed up this little flotilla that came out there and landed. And I think we got 4 or 5 aircraft, as I remember. And we were told that 120 Squadron was going to go on the Stranraers and we're going to move into Coal Harbour. So we said, where is Coal Harbour? Well, they had just started really getting in shape. They built the hangar and the ramp out of the ocean, or bay, I should say, to bring we should put them on a cradle business and bring them up and to do a lot of the service on it, but minor service on the aircraft was done out at anchor, where they're anchored out in the bay. But anyway, we were instructed, told to be down to the dock at 7 o'clock in the morning and get yourself a Mae West and you know the thing to in case you fell in the water. And they started instructing us on how to fly the Stranraer, and we went through all the routines you have to do to get the thing in the air. I think there were 5 of us in the aircraft that day. All at one time we started out, a beautiful day, I remember, and we'd taken off and show you how to do a takeoff and how to do a landing, and then first of all how to cast off, and then how to pick up the buoy again, and those things you had to work with your crewman you had on board to do these things. And we went almost over to Vancouver and doing this and changing people in the seat and so on. And this fellow was in a hurry to get out of there, I think, because by the time we get back to Pat Bay, and he told us to bring down our logbooks when we came down in the morning. So when we got back to Pat Bay, we had 5 new captains on the Stranraer. Do 1 landing, 1 takeoff, 1 thing, and you're authorized to fly. And I say we were in a hurry. The next day, I think within 2 days or something of Pearl Harbour, we were in Coal Harbour.
Would he have been RAF or RCAF?
He was RCAF.
Oh, okay.
His name was Freddie Carpenter.
Oh.
No, he's long gone.
So you're at Coal Harbour, and you have your Stranraers, and then you're now are you starting to do what type of patrols now?
Well,
Are
we
they
started
changing?
to do then the Aleutian point, come up the last three islands out there in the Aleutian where chaps had moved in and built some strips and put some fighter aircraft in there, as I understand it. And we moved, I think, a fighter squadron out as far west as they could get anyway, and to keep their eye on them, that's all. And we were to run patrols out as far as we could, and make sure if a task force started down the coast to come onto the west coast, that we at least could warn them. And that was our job. And in the time I was there, as a matter of fact, just a while back, I had some reason to, when I was thinking about today, I counted up, and I think I did about 35 patrols, something like that out there in the time I was there. It'd be, every day we got what I think we call them the blues or something, BLUE, because that was the color of the paper it came on, the op order of what we're going to do the next day. And so they wanted 2 aircraft out, or 1, or whatever, and a lot of it, of course, depended on the weather. Sometimes you couldn't get out as far as you wanted to. But we were fairly busy.
Do you know, would you be flying solo, like just 1 aircraft all the time?
No. Oh, yeah, individual, yeah, we weren't out doing this. So it was, you'd be on your own, and then there'd be another one, maybe take off at noon and go out. But
How long? Like,
steady going.
okay, would they,
Well, I was looking at about 6, 7 hours, 8 hours sometimes, the flight would be.
how many would be on a crew on a crew of that one?
You had your navigator, you had a crewman, and you had 2 gunners, I think, on each gunner for each. No, you had 3 gunners, and and a crewman.
So this was more heavily armed than the Hudson.
Yeah, the Hudson, yeah, because we didn't have any waist gunners or anything like that in the aircraft, just big mid upper.
Yeah, on
gun,
the Hudson, yeah. Okay. So do you remember any events from there? Like, would you check out fishing boats or
No,
like, or
no.
any connection with coastal artillery or?
Oh, no, there was no coastal artillery up there. That's right up close to the tip of the island of
Oh, okay, you're,
Coal Harbour's well up. You're up near, I've forgotten where the boat that does the inland passage trip. It was right opposite us, we through the woods.
okay.
Can't think.
Anyway, you're at
Is
the
that
tip,
the
but you're at the northern, you're
Northern
close
tip
to
of
Vancouver Island.
yeah.
Okay.
Is that the Jervis
I-
Inlet?
I would say it'd be 25 or 30 miles from the very tip of
Oh,
the,
okay.
that's all.
So there's no connection then with, so no coastal, there's no connection with, like, do you ever recall like anything with the Fisherman's Reserve or?
No,
You guys are just on your own pretty well then?
we were on our own.
Will your radios reach back if you spot something to
Yeah.
base?
Yeah, you had a wireless operator with you,
Okay.
yeah. He would get the message out.
Now, were you around during the shelling when the Japanese submarine shells the Estevan
Yeah.
lighthouse?
Yeah, I remember that was on a Sunday morning, just before noon. We were sitting at the table and it came with I'll call it a blue, an operator anyway, saying that, and the squadron commander said, "Who wants to sink a submarine?" And all the hands went up. So anyway, it had surfaced off Tofino,
Estevan Point?
was it? Yeah.
Yeah, Estevan
Down
Point.
the
I think
coast,
it's-
Estevan,
Yeah, Estevan Point,
yes.
yeah.
And it had fired, I think, 3 rounds at the lighthouse and missed. So anyway, he just surfaced long enough to fire 3 gun and submerged and was gone. So of course I think we sent an aircraft off to go down there, and there was there were another base down there that why they came all the way up here to get us, because it would take us an hour to get down there, and they're 90 knots. And so anyway, that was an exciting moment. We thought we were in the war.
But you didn't see anything then?
No.
Did you fly over the lighthouse?
No, I never saw
Or
them.
did you fly to the lighthouse?
No, I didn't go.
Oh, you didn't go?
No, I
Okay.
didn't go down there.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, before we could get off the water, it was canceled.
Oh.
The op was canceled because they got somebody else up there closer to it. But
So you just referred to the Stranraer doing 90 knots, which isn't
Yeah.
very fast. Can you tell us a little bit about the aircraft and you had a great story about the mechanic and the bird inside the...
Oh yeah, these things, it's a biplane, and wires going and all to hold everything is wired. And I once asked, and I often thought rigging that aircraft, you know, to get is quite an art, because gosh, you could be tighten up something and you could be bending the wing a bit that would make it hard to fly. Or anyway, these fellows were good, and I said to a rigger, I said, or one of the mechanics anyway, I said, how do you rig this thing so you know that everything is right? And he had a sense of humor, and he said, well, I'll tell you, sir, he said, I bring on a little sparrow. And he said, I get in the cab, inside the aircraft, and I turn the sparrow loose, and if it gets out, there's a wire missing somewhere. And so that's the way we do it.
Now, I was going to ask a bit about, was there any crews that died through accidents or were lost at sea during your time that you can recall?
Well, there's one I know about, but as a matter of fact, it was my crew that I was sent down to the East Coast on, I left there on the 15th of May.
What
and
year?
We'd gone up in May 42.
42?
15th of May 42 to be an instructor on an instrument flying school that they were setting up in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. And my crew was taken over by another pilot, of course. And my son sent me a clipping out of a paper or something that listed the crew that went missing. They just never showed up. They went out on a patrol, and I guess the weather was pretty bad, and they didn't return. That's all I know about it. And the whole bunch were a bit of, so I looked at the names, and about 4 of them had flown with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that aircraft, I looked at my logbook, and I'd flown that same aircraft about 8 or 10 times.
Hmm.
But that was the only one that I know of that was lost, and it wasn't through enemy action.
Now, this could be in either Pat Bay or Coal Harbour. Do you remember, were there many Aussies or Australians or New Zealanders in your groups there at that time?
None reached us, no.
Were you ever involved in training Australians or New Zealanders?
No. We did my training was just, as I said, in Quebec, at the little base there, and then Kingston, and after that you're in a squadron, or I went back to the East Coast, and eventually, after we finished this, running this instructor's flying, and I was instructing on instrument flying, and for some reason I loved instrument flying in bad weather and so on. Must be weird. But anyway, they wanted me to go down and set as chief instructor at this school in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia.
Sorry, just doing last question on your. So, did your social life get a little bit better at Pat Bay, and then when you went to Coal Harbour, you're off?
Pretty good. Yeah.
What types of things would have there been to do there for?
Well, for one thing, they weren't used to the Air Force out there. Because all Navy were well established, and the Army well established there. So they had a couple of clubs in Victoria, and they invited us to join them. You could go and have a nice dinner and under nice conditions and so on, and that was nice. And I think we were a bit of a novelty because they so used to the Army and the Navy that we didn't do too bad there.
They have dances and
Oh, dances and, yeah.
sports.
And of course, the old Royal Victoria Hospital, or listen to this, hotel.
Oh,
What's
okay.
the famous hotel there?
The Empress.
The
The
Empress?
Empress Hotel, yeah.
Was it another place right by, I think, the old airport, there's a place called Molly's Blue Moon Cafe? I don't know if it's still there, I think, so it was, but you did go to the Empress, that was,
Well, the Empress with the big affairs, about once a year, they would have a big New Year's Eve deal, for example. We arrived out there just before New Year's, in December.
Just in time for the party.
Yeah.
Can I clarify something about your rank? Are you a pilot officer at that point in time, when
Yeah.
you get up there?
We were pilot officers, yeah.
So, did you have any, I know sometimes they went for educated, like university educated, or like what education level would you have had?
Well, I had high school and then 2 years of technical school,
Oh, okay.
electrical engineer.
Oh,
2 years
okay.
of that just qualifies you really as an electrician. But I had to go down to St. John for that.
Okay.
That was after I finished high school. And then the war came on.
So is there anything else at that time period that you wanted to share about? So are you well, I'll do first, that's your first question, I guess. Is there anything else that you wanted to share at that time period where you're still with Western Command and you're on the West Coast?
Well, I could tell you a little amusing thing that when we got this Harry Winnie, they said, quite a character. And he was checking me out on the Hudson. And we had received a new crash boat, to take care of anybody going into the harbor or into the really lake off the west end, and we had an east-west runway and the water on both ends. And so I was interested in watching this boat doing it, and they were doing some speed trials, and it was quite impressive. This thing was really going. And I'm watching it all the way around, and Harry's sitting there on my right, and he's sitting, always sat like this. And I was watching all, and we came around, got the final approach, forgot to put my wheels down. And so I come in over the end of the button and, of course, pull the power off, and you know what happens, the horn blows. And it's a real loud one. And that, boy, you get that power back on right away. And it's just skipped once. And when that horn went, and I just jammed her wide open and went around again. I'm really embarrassed. And Harry's sitting there like that. And when I was on the final approach, the second time, he just looked at me, he says, "Young fella, you'll never do that again, will you?" I said, "I don't think I will, sir." And that's all he said. Just, cool as a cucumber. Yeah, great guy.
So, Cliff, you're at Coal Harbour, and you're starting to do flights out towards more of the Aleutians. Can you talk about that, how far you went?
Well, we, in my logbook, I was looking at it, and we did our patrols that we ran out from the tip of, we're going to say from the tip of Vancouver Island west out. We'd be gone for about 7 hours, 6 to 7 hours. Lots of times weather would turn you back sooner, but generally a normal trip is about, say, 7 hours.
Do you know about what altitude you would have been flying?
We'd be down at 2,000 feet, something like that.
Okay. Did you see many ships or anything there, or?
Not very much, not very often.
And no Japanese
Not that far
contact?
up there, no, of course, no Japanese contact.
Okay.
Because they were well out at the end of the Aleutians. I think they moved into 3 little islands out there.
So would you have been involved at the Kiska campaign then? Or you've left by then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And you never experienced any anti-aircraft fire from the
no.
Japanese?
Oh, we were never near any Japanese.
So now, with the Japanese balloon bombs, did you ever, when you were out there, were you aware of them? Did you ever see any of them, or?
No, we didn't, but I've heard a story on that again, my son sent to me. Yeah, and that's done by an army officer that they recovered one, got it. It's somewhere out in BC, and it caught in a tree, and it didn't ignite like it's supposed to. It just set the woods on fire, and they recovered it and got it and hauled it out. They were quite large, the canopy, and they rolled it up, and about 6 or 8 army guys with it like this, carrying it through the woods.
Just a question in relation to the Stranraer, or maybe even the Hudson, but did you make any changes, like as time went on, did you like retrofit or change things on the aircraft to make them better, to adjust to the conditions?
No. Just the only thing that you watch is your mixture of your, which you can adjust. And generally, if you're worried about having enough fuel, what you do is you lean it right out until you feel the power is starting to, and then bring it back a little to give you back your full power. But with the leaner mixture, you're saving, in other words, you're saving the fuel.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I always did that in Bomber Command as well. At every altitude, I'd readjust.
So you obviously are packing food and rations and bathrooms
When you
and the
have
whole...
have a lunch, yeah. Yeah.
Did you want to relate the story that you told about the using the semaphore to signal back and forth with the Stranraer?
Oh, yeah. Well, I can tell you a little story on that has nothing to do with Coal Harbour, but when I was in Trenton, we had aircraft come in there, Norsemen and things like that every once in a while. And we had, if a crewman was working on an aircraft that's anchored out there and he needed a tool or something like that, we didn't have radios at that time, mobile radios. You could take out of your pocket and say, send me out a screwdriver or something. And maybe they dropped it, and if you drop a tool in a case like that, it's gone. And so this sergeant was standing by the corner of the hangar, and the fellow out in the aircraft caught his eye and waved to him, and he, with semaphore, with his hands, said, send me out whatever the tool was, I can't forget. But before that, he said, there was a chap by the name of Maudsley that was famous in the old peacetime Air Force and well known, and everybody was very fond of him. And he was walking down from the headquarters in Trenton down towards the dock. So the fellow out here facing out to the fellow on the aircraft didn't know he was coming from behind. But the guy out there could see him, of course, and he said, here comes the Mad Hatter. And they had lots of names for Maudsley. But anyway, Maudsley was walking along, and he's pretty sharp, and he was reading it as he came down, and just as he walked by the sergeant, he tapped him on the shoulder and says, when he said, "Here comes the Mad Hatter," he says, "2 T's and Hatter, my boy." And kept right on walking. So the boy out on the aircraft got a word or two from the sergeant afterwards, I'm sure.
So, if you were thinking about anything in retrospect, about thinking about attitude changes of, say, the military on the coast, could you describe anything that changed, like as of Pearl Harbor, like sort of, you know, for example, did all of a sudden people carry more weapons? Did people more security on the bases?
Oh, yeah.
More.
We had more security on the base. We had Army people that patrolled the base at night. And for about the first week, they sealed off the base and didn't allow people off there. But we were gone by that time. But afterwards, they said they were pretty strict. If you had your car, if you lived off the base, and you were permanent staff there, I mean, that was a different thing. You could go home, but everybody else that were living on the base weren't allowed out. That was at Pat Bay.
Yeah. But were you carrying, would you, in your standard equipment, when you're flying patrol, are you carrying weapons?
No. And when we were in Bomber Command, we didn't carry them either, because that's all the guy, if you force landed or bailed out or anything, if you got a weapon on it, gives them an excuse to take care of you.
So an ironic
So
form of
a lot
defense.
of the fellows didn't want to carry a weapon. I think in the early parts of the war they did carry. I think the Americans nearly all carried weapons.
So could you maybe explain a bit, so why you end up transferring after your, I thought you said 35 missions you had approximately?
Yeah.
Then why do you transfer out of Western Command?
Well, it was to set up the instrument flying school down on the East Coast, because they get some pretty rough weather down there, particularly in the wintertime. Believe me, I used to, when we were doing convoy escort, and you'd see those little corvettes down there in January, February, out in that ocean. It wasn't a happy situation. And they had, it was really tough. You take off my cap to those lads in the Navy.
So how long were you at in that role?
Well, I was in Yarmouth for about 8 months, and then we closed up the school. I think we caught everybody up to the point that we're satisfied, and then I went on 161, a coastal squadron down at Dartmouth, across the harbour from Halifax, and did convoy and anti-submarine work over there until I talked them into letting me go overseas.
And so what? And when would that have been, Cliff, that you would have gone over to?
Well, 17th of January, 44.
Okay.
So what was going on in Bomber Command in January 44?
Oh, full bore. They were RAF and we were hitting. That's one thing about the Air Force. We were in the war from the first day. Same as the Navy. Navy, a lot of people forget that. Right from the beginning. And
So I know you have some interviews and things on that, but is there any? Could you just recall what squadrons you were with, and any highlights that, or major experiences that you would have had, maybe?
Well, I was with two bomber squadrons. I went over to the 419 Squadron, but we took over a bunch of bases in Yorkshire. As a matter of fact, right from the northern part of Yorkshire to the southern, we took off all of the airports there that they were built. And number 6 bomber group was a Canadian bomber group, strictly. And we operated out of there. We were the farthest north of any of the bomber squadrons. And that's why we got the Lancasters, the Canadian-built Lancs, right as soon as they were building them. They went from the northern, started the northern. Well, 419 was right up there. That's why I joined that squadron, and so I could fly the Lancaster.
What was 419 Squadron? Did it have a name attached to it too?
It was the Moose.
The Moose, that was Moose
Yeah,
Squadron.
Yeah, from Kamloops.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first commander was from Kamloops. Moose Fulton. It was rather interesting. He joined the RAF when about 1935 or 6 or 7, whatever, when England noticed what Hitler was up to, and they were getting pretty concerned, and so they started to build up their Air Force, for one thing. I'd like the other services as well, but I'm familiar with that. And they recruited Canadians to come over and join the RAF. And that's why we ended up finally with about 41% of the RAF were Canadians.
Wow.
And so we wanted to have our own bomber group, so we finally got it. Number 6, and that's where it was.
You had autonomy over your own
Yeah, well, we
bombing
were
sorties.
still with the RAF Bomber Command. We flew on the same targets together. By that time, the Americans were over as well. They're flying B-17s, the Flying Fortresses, and they did daylight work, and we did mostly the night. But towards the end of the war, we were doing daylight raids as well. And so we were very busy.
What was your role with 419? What's your designation?
I arrived overseas with about 1,600 hours on my logbook. And so I had more flying experience even than my squadron commander, who had gone over and was trained and on ops. But I had spent all this time in coastal work, so I put a lot of hours in. And we had two squadrons on each base, and then the Moose Squadron was up at Middleton, St. George, as I say, and the Ghost Squadron, 428, was on the other side of the field. And we operated, on the 6th group, we had 2 squadrons on each of the bases that we took over. I think we had 17 squadrons altogether, something like that.
How many sorties did you fly with Moose Squadron?
I did 29 trips.
Wow. Flying Lancasters?
Flew Lancasters for the first 20. Finished up on Halifax 7s, which was a pretty good aircraft.
Was a complete mission not considered 25 sorties?
No, 30.
Oh, 30.
But if you were 29, you'd get credited for it.
And then you go to another squadron? Did you?
No,
sorry,
you'd be
419
grounded.
and then
You'd be grounded, and you'd be put on some kind of an administrative, even in the flying instructor's job somewhere, at an OTU or operational training unit, where they were getting you ready before you went into 4-engine aircraft. So you'd go through a phase. The OTU, if we flew the old Wellingtons at the OTU, the twin engine, there was in the war early and was a pretty good old bomber early in the war, but then was replaced with a 4-engine aircraft. But Moose Fulton is kind of a famous guy, and he got the name Moose when he went over early and joined the RAF. The squadron commander, the old boy, said to him one day, "You're a Canadian." "Yeah, oh yes." "Where are you from?" "In Canada." He said, "Well, I'm from out in the west coast of the Rocky Mountains, you know, and all that." And he says, "I suppose you see lots of moose out there, do you?" And he said, "Oh, you see lots. You shoot a lot of moose?" And he kind of said, well, yes, you do, and you need to for food and stuff. And this is sort of the way the story went. And so the old fellow says, "From now on I'm going to call you Moose." And that stuck. And he was called that for the rest of the war. The poor devil had shot down in the channel. The last words I heard from him, he's down at about 50 feet. There were 2 fighters on him.
And you were in direct communication with him?
No, he was in direct communication with the search and rescue.
Is that right?
You know, I presume, you know, that's generally what you do, and tell them you're going down, and they'd get their little flying, but didn't have them. They'd have, I think, forgotten what they called them anyway. They could land in the channel and pick you up.
So in 29...
You know Art Smith, don't you?
Yes.
Yes.
From here. Well, he, you know, was ditched Lancaster in the channel and was picked up.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, and he didn't lose a man.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So in 29 raids, you never were shot down?
No. We were hit pretty badly at times, but
What was your most dramatic incident where your plane took a beating?
well, it's a very unusual one. We were coming out of a target at Ludwigshafen, and about an hour out of the target on the way home, all of a sudden my engineer is generally always standing right beside me, and he's watching the power I'm using, calculating the fuel and all of these things, and he just tapped me and said, "Look," and I looked out, and there's a fortress. This is about 3 o'clock in the morning, but there was enough light that I could make out the outline of the aircraft, an American aircraft. And they don't fly at night, you know. And so...
And solitary.
Yeah, and so I just, for some reason, had a funny feeling about it, and I said to my mid-upper, "You put your gun on him, Larry." This Larry Cromwell was my mid-upper gunner. And I said, "Put your guns on him and keep them on him." And so he could see us well enough to know that those 250 calibers were aimed right at him. So and then we discussed, I said, "You know, navigator, what do you think this is?" And the engineer, who was a little bit older than I was, and he said, "It's strange." I said, "You see, we used the B-17s. They seconded a certain number of them to the RAF to use them, and on a raid they went in ahead of us and to draw the fighters off and mark the target for us and stuff like that. And see, on a raid we were giving every squad, we didn't fly in formation. The Americans flew in the daytime only in big formations, squadrons, you know, in that way. And about the first 3 or 4 aircraft in the lead carried navigators, and the others didn't. They just flew in formation. So anyway, I thought this poor devil has been hit or something, and there's some reason why he is way out here. Because they would go in early, they'd go to the target, but never beyond the target. And then they turn around and go home, and we're behind them and dropping our load.